Welcome back to the Worldview Minute. I'm Pastor Levi Secord. Today we're going to unpack kind of an odd question, but it's really looking back at the history of science to show that the scientific revolution happened in a particular time and place in history, and that was not accidental. Right? So we're going to look back at the ancient pagan world and see that the scientific revolution never happened. Now it's true that they did have some scientific advances, but we call it the scientific revolution for a reason, because it was a boom into the modern science that we have today. And that until that time in world history, the ground was not fertile for this expansion of science. And that's because, as we saw in the last episode, there are specific beliefs that you need in order for science to be possible and desirable and all of those things. So I'm going to read to you several quotes today to kind of unpack this. And I'll read to you a quote here first from philosopher Mary Migdally. She writes this. She says, "Science does have its own worldview that includes guiding presuppositions, that's foundational beliefs, about the nature of the world. The founders of modern science expressed these very plainly for their time. Cosmic order, they said, flows wholly from God, so science redounds to his glory." So her point here, and we're going to see this, that your beliefs about God and reality impact whether or not science is possible, whether or not the scientific method and the scientific revolution were possible. So whether you're looking at ancient China, the Romans, the Greeks, while they did have some scientific success, they did not have the necessary beliefs for science to function. The problems with the ancients were their faulty views of the world, reality, gods, and humanity. Science writer Lauren Isley observes this. "Science is an invented cultural institution, an institution not present in all societies. Science is not a universal human norm. It's developed in its specific societies." Isley continues, "The type of thinking known today as scientific, with its emphasis upon experiment and mathematical formulation, arose in one culture, one, in Western Europe, and no other." Why did it only arise in Western Europe? Why was the ancient world incapable of producing a scientific revolution and the scientific reality and development that we have today? So I have for you today 4 problematic beliefs that limited science in ancient civilizations. And really, if you have these problematic beliefs today, you're undermining the foundation of modern science. First, the first problematic belief is that they believe that the physical world was chaotic. Most pagan religions believed that the world was chaotic, that the gods of the pagan religions were often in conflict with one another. They ruled over different aspects of creation, and that they were they very much did whatever they wanted. They did not operate by any type of natural laws, as it were, but rather they were intimate, very much like humans, and very self-interested. There was no unifying, directing God of nature and history who ordered the world. In such a world in which the gods are chaotic and the world is viewed as chaotic, science becomes impossible. Second, the ancient pagan worlds often viewed the physical world as not worth studying. Many pagan religions, particularly Eastern religions, view the world as if it is an illusion, or if it's a physical prison that the spiritual needs to escape from or to be liberated from. If you look at the world in that way, if you say physical is bad, if you say that this is just an illusion, then it's not worth studying. If you can contrast that with the Christian worldview, where God created the world reflects his glory, and God says at the beginning of creation, it is good, that means it's good and worth studying. Third, in the pagan world, scientific study could also be viewed, or often was viewed, as ethically wrong. If you think about the world as being charged with different spirits, if there's a spirit in every rock and every tree, as Pocahontas sings, then poking or prodding those rocks and those trees and those elements of nature is dangerous and even possibly offensive to the gods. If you're Poseidon and you rule over the sea and you want to test his realm, you are going to invoke the wrath of the gods. Robert Clark, a British scientist, he wrote this long quote. It's worth you considering. He writes this: "However we interpret the fact, scientific development has only occurred in a Christian culture. The ancients had brains as good as ours. In all civilizations, Babylonia, Egypt, Greece, India, Rome, Persia, China, and so on, science developed to a certain point and then it stopped. For the non-Christian world believed that there was something ethically wrong about science. In Greece, this conviction was enshrined in the legend of Prometheus, the fire bearer and prototype scientist who stole fire from heaven, thus incurring the wrath of the gods." If you view these selfish These selfish gods who are only really self-interested, who are constantly interfering with the world for their own ends and goods, with no concern for the world and no ethical standards by which they operate, and that they are intimately tied to different aspects of creation. Then studying or poking and prodding those things is to implore or is to invoke the wrath of those gods, and can be viewed as ethically wrong. And the fourth and final view, or false view, that limited scientific development in the ancient world was that there was no single law-giving God. With no God whose character and standard impacts all of creation, directs all of creation, the idea of there being laws of nature was a foreign concept. I think that there are laws of nature, scientific laws, we say. Without the foundation for those types of natural laws from a law-giving God, there is no reason for science to work. You can't discover scientific laws through the scientific process if there are no laws of nature. You can't expect ordered and repeatable results if there are no laws of nature. And if there is no law-giving God, there is no law of nature. So the scientific revolution, it came about through and about or in the Christian West. Again, returning to Isley, it is the Christian world which finally gave birth in a clear, articulate fashion to the experimental method of science itself. This is not an accident of history. That's why we go back to the last episode. Those who say that Christianity and science are at war with one another don't understand science. They don't understand the history of science. The Christian West is the only reason that you have the scientific revolution that we have. The only reason that you have the modern wonders that have now even gone over into the Eastern world, into the pagan world, is because of these assumed Christian beliefs that gave birth to the scientific revolution. This is not just my theory. This is recognized by historians of science who are Christians and non-Christians alike. That Christianity is absolutely essential to the enterprise of science. We know this from history. We know it still today. And we see this at the beginning also of the scientific revolution, as that most of the the founding fathers of modern science were motivated by their Christian faith. They were either deists or some form of Christian view of divinity. That all of them were that the Christianity, the Christian faith, the Christian worldview dominated Western Europe in the 16th and the 1700s, 16th and 17th centuries, because everyone in that time frame was thinking in Christian categories in the West. This led to the boom of science. So I'm going to give you some quotes here from some famous scientists from that time frame. Sir Isaac Newton, the physicist. He said this, quote, "The most beautiful system of sun, planets, and comets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion and intelligent and powerful being." Right? The most beautiful system of sun, planets, and comets could only proceed from the counsel and dominion of an intelligent and powerful being. He looked out, he saw the world, and he saw it as a reflection of God. Van Helmont, an early chemist, said this, "I believe that nature is the command of God, whereby a thing is that which it is, and doth which it is commanded to do or act." He's like, I look at the world, it is what it is because of the command of God. So when I study nature, I'm studying the character of God. Johannes Kepler, early astronomer, said this, "I give you thanks, Creator and God, that you have given me this joy in thy creation, and I rejoice in the works of your hands. See, I have now completed the work to which I was called. In it I have used all the talent you lent me, or lent to my spirit." The early scientists, they approached studying the world through a Christian understanding, and they did it because they thought that they would learn more about their Creator. The ancients were terrified. They had these limits of their view of reality that prevented them from advancing in science as the Christian West did. This is an indisputable fact of history. And now, much of scientism, as we talked about, has undercut or cut off that very foundation for science. And so science itself has become this free-floating, just faith statement that is actually sawing off the limb that it rests upon. I encourage you to like, comment, and share, even subscribe to this channel as we continue to unpack the Christian worldview 1 minute at a time.